Do you want to talk about the thing
Oh, sure.
that happened
Yeah,
between you and Donald Trump?
Yeah, I went and protested Donald Trump in Muscatine, Iowa, with another Chicago comedian, Taylor Williams. He's from that town in Iowa. I used to live in Iowa City, Iowa. And I actually, in the summer, I'd gone to one of the first rallies Trump held. And I kind of took it as a joke. I think that was kind of the attitude. But I'd been following how it was growing, and I felt I shouldn't have been watching that like voyeuristically. You know, I think it hit for me a little bit earlier than other people that this guy was really doing something pretty menacing, something pretty intense with the kind of bigotry he was bringing across.
Was it the same vibe at both rallies that you went to?
No, it was a lot more intense at this one that I went to, I think near February, early February.
What do you think were some of the changes that had happened in those few months?
Well, I mean, we did have this terrorist attacks in Paris and also San Bernardino, and I don't think he cares about terrorism at all, other than how he can use it to market himself. I think that's really what he's doing. He made the statement about the Muslim ban, the registry, the database on Muslims as well. One thing I found really stunning was his statement that there were thousands and thousands of Muslims cheering on 9/11. I think that was something that really stuck with me. And the fact that it didn't actually get addressed in the media in a serious way. If you look at it now, even it's a question of, this is a lie or a conspiracy. That's an accusation against thousands and thousands of Americans, and that we're kind of at that state is ridiculous. And it's also a statement he made when hate crimes were spiking in this country against Muslims, or people who appear like Muslims, or people who are supposed to fit the stereotype of the enemy in a bigot's mind. And that was incredible to me, that statement could be made, and it just kind of got lost in the sort of horse race coverage.
Yeah, so I'm scrolling through Facebook one day just looking for the funniest fart jokes, and then I see that, you're in the news.
Yeah, that was...
Yeah.
Yeah, I never thought that would happen. I was an activist in college a lot, especially during the Iraq War. That was a time of activism for me. And I've been to a lot of protests. I never imagined that it would catch on in that kind of way. And it was kind of a useful thing to kind of go to the media and draw these kind of concerns out. I think there's been some issues with the protests toward the end of primaries getting violent. I don't think that's useful at all. I don't condone it, but I also don't think it advances the cause at all. But as this spread, these protests, I think what it really drew out was a lot of the extremist element that was there, that wasn't really getting a lot of coverage. There was a New Yorker article that I read before I went and protested that was about these white supremacists who were organizing around Trump. And that's a fringe movement. There's not a whole lot of people there, but there's a kind of activity that's kind of crazy. And as I mentioned, there was a white supremacist attack on a Sikh temple not too many years ago. So we had this Dylan Roof. I just find it incredible that you wouldn't denounce that kind of thing. And when before I did that protest in Iowa, they were doing these robocall messages. A white supremacist was doing this and saying to vote for Trump. We don't need more educated. We don't need more Muslims in this country. We need more educated white people, right?
Wow.
Yeah.
If anything, we need less educated white people, first of all.
Yeah.
I think education's the worst thing to ever happen to white people.
I think it's pretty tough. I'm not a big fan.
What came first for you, activism or stand-up, or did it kind of happen at the same time?
Activism came for me first. In some ways, I kind of feel that I removed myself from it, and now recently with what's gone on, I've kind of brought myself back to it. But yeah, I in college, that was a very important thing for me, and then afterwards, it's kind of amazing to me. I think what happened with the Iraq War was a big extent a failure of the media, because I don't think enough scrutiny was put on government sources about what we were going after. Thank you for smattering applause. It's not like we can reverse it now, I guess it's not. But
you can't reverse racism.
You can't now. But now we have a situation again it's very media-centric that this is going on. You can't, Donald Trump is not a genius in any sense. It's just that you can't, the way things are set up, you have to have this sort of superficial impartiality, and if he stonewalls you on answers, you have to use all your time questioning him, and that's just not how the media is set up. And
he's the white guy who gets the job because he has the ability to keep talking, basically.
Basically, I mean, it is crazy. It's like a con man. It's like the worst grift you could have, basically. But the way things are set up, everybody can't do anything about it. They can't really. I mean, now you're seeing a little bit of that. There's some. I think there was a CNN thing where they actually fact-checked him live as he was talking about that judge he was accusing of being biased because of his Mexican heritage. And that should be great. Some people argue then well, we have to do that for everybody. And they're like, let's do that for everybody. Let's do that every election. Let's not be a PR system for candidates. Let's have scrutiny.
Do you think politics truly fuels the comedy that you do?
Before this was going on, I like a lot of experimental comedy. I like a lot of absurdist stuff. That's kind of where I'm at. But I think being Indian in this country and living through 9/11 and seeing what's happened, the fact that he made that statement about Jersey City, New Jersey, Muslims cheering there, I remember the kind of violence that was going on in New York and these things, the kind of hate crimes after September 11th. In Jersey City, New Jersey, that's kind of like a center point for South Asians. We had issues before 9/11. We had this group called the Dot Busters in the 80s. This is something my older kind of relatives would tell me about as a kid. There was, again, an issue of an aggrieved white working class. There were attacks on people who were perceived to be Hindus. The Dot head name, that's where that comes from. What they're getting at is there were a lot of Hindu-run stores that were there, and people were angry. There was resentment, and there was actually a manifesto published by these guys in the Jersey City Journal. There was a man who was a doctor who was he was beaten so badly he couldn't finish his medical training. That's why he was there in Jersey City. To be Indian and not know those things, I'm a little hostile to sometimes towards other Indian people, and I feel like there's a little bit too many Gucci Prada Indians out there. I'll put it
okay.
that way.
All right.
Some people who are just trying to, they don't really know about their history in this country, and I don't want to disconnect myself from that.
Okay.
I think that kind of ambivalence makes me. I'm rambling a little bit here, but I do feel intensely about this stuff. So
let's transition into the story that you want to tell tonight.
Sure.
Do you have a headline for the story?
The headline I have is Trump protester hawks merch man's mixtape. I'll call it that.
Do you know how many Latinos work for me? Do you know how many Hispanics are working for me? Okay.
I'm trying to figure out which person you're the Trump protester.
I am the Trump protester here. This actually happened after everything went down with that protest.
He wasn't wearing one of those hats, was he? Was he wearing one of those?
I stuck around in Iowa City, which is not too far from Muscatine, and I was helping out with this other protest they were doing there, which was actually, I think it was great. They used whistles. They snuck in whistles, and every time there was a statement that he would make that was annoying, or that they protested, they would blow whistles. Imagine if you could do that in the media.
That is kind of like that that clown sound whistle. That's what I'm imagining.
That would be great.
Okay.
A sad trombone would have been wonderful. Yeah. That would have been great.
I'm not saying they're stupid. I like China. I just sold an apartment for $15 million to somebody from China.
And Trump did get enraged by this. He was lost his shit completely. He was yelling, can I rip these whistles out of their mouths and things like that. So
Get him out. Get him out. Get him out. That was quick. That was quick.
I didn't go in and do that. I just wanted to be there to support, and I was outside, and there was a lot of protesters outside who were very angry, and there was a lot of rage. And I think this is part of the thing that happens is you want to see some confrontation, but you can't actually reach the person you want to confront. And so you kind of take the rage out on the supporters of Trump, and that's just not always productive. It just is a lot of aggression. And I was seeing people yell like I'm an anarchist, and then the supporters of Trump were going like, I don't care. It was a lot of meaningless aggression, and I didn't want to direct anybody or tell them do something different. But then a girl did come over to me and was like, do you want to help us lead any chants? And I was like, yes, very much so, because I want to direct everybody and tell them what to do because this is horrible and it's not working at all. And Woody Guthrie was on my mind a lot at this time.
As usual.
Usually, very much so. Well, it's interesting because I sometimes, talking about being a Sikh in this country, I bring up Woody Guthrie because he was born the same year the first Gurdwara was made in the U.S., 1912, right? So, as a group of people, we're that American, That's how the man who wrote the song "This Is Your Land," that's us, that we're in that same time frame. So and also apparently Woody Guthrie had written a song about Donald Trump's father. He actually lived in one of these apartments.
I read about
yeah. And so that song.
His father wasn't a great guy.
No, he was extremely racist. Actually, that's most of the song was Woody Guthrie just going like, "Damn, this dude is racist." It's just a lot of riffs on that, just very repetitive. But so I was trying. We got people singing that, and it was actually that was the kind of dynamic I thought worked well because you're kind of. I think it helps to shame people. This is a kind of a protest. If you want to make these points, I think it helps to, if you look at the civil rights protests, like a lot of that was about shaming bigotry, about how ridiculous it is that it's more dignified to be on this side, and so we did that, and I was impressed. What happened was there was the merch guy who kept coming over, and he kept yelling, "Bomb the shit out of ISIS." I got "bomb the shit out of ISIS" buttons, right? That's what he was yelling about because he's got these buttons to sell. But he was also doing it in a way that was very intentional to dissipate the singing.
It also sounds like he thinks ISIS is a place.
Yes, that is, yeah. That is a true.
Land is your land.
That would make things much easier, actually, if
Right?
ISIS was a place. That should be our next policy. Make ISIS a place, then bomb it. That's maybe what's been going wrong, right? That's what's been going wrong.
You and me.
I will admit, I sometimes have anger, temper problems, and sometimes when it's like someone's coming at me, I feel like I have to go back at that. But I don't want to be violent, that's not something I was looking for, but I feel like I have to respond. So what I did is this man's holding this big sign, and he's selling his button, and he's going, "Bomb the shit out of ISIS, Hillary for prison." He's yelling it, he's going back and forth down the line for the people entering. I came up behind him, I was about 2 feet behind him, and I kept going, "Yo, buy my man's mixtape right here. Buy my man's mixtape. Get Hillary for prison. Get bomb the shit out of ISIS. Get the best. He's got the best. You want to go after the Taliban? Get the Dipset Taliban. That's what I've got right here." And I was like 2 feet behind him the whole way. I was just going back down and forth the line, and he didn't know what to do. He was very confused, and it just kept going like that. But as I was going down, all these people who were there, a lot of them were college students, and they were getting what I was doing, and they were getting the references I was making. And I tried to recruit more people to help me, basically make it seem that we were selling mixtapes, basically. And it was sort of like a sketch comedy protest is what emerged from that. And
do you feel like your anger comes out through comedy?
A little bit, yeah. Actually, Trump made some statements about me that he said, "Is he wearing one of those hats?" Right? And some people were like, "Is that about his turban, or was it about one of these Make America Great hats?" And what I've done is I have that recorded, and I've kind of built a whole comedy show about that. And I've gone to go raise money for sort of causes that are opposed to hate crimes, and I've built a show out of that. And I think that's sort of the best way to go at it because. I know, I obviously doesn't know about this, but the idea that I'm using his sound clip and he's not getting a cut of any of that money, that is the revenge that you can have on Trump. That is...
That's beautiful. Is there any way people can find out about this show or these shows you're doing?
You can follow me on Twitter. It's Arish, A-R-I-S-H, and I've been doing some of these. I hope to do more, but I hope even more that this guy drops out and we have some kind of... I hope we don't have this race war, actually. That's mostly what I say that half jokingly, but it's not really just about this election. There's been a lot of people who are revved up, and I think what comes after this could be very unfortunate. We don't have these kind of politics. My relatives, my Sikh relatives who are in Britain, they had to deal with people like the British National Front and this basically an anti-immigrant fascist party, and that stuff is really ugly. It could happen here, and I don't want to see that. So.
Well, give it up for Arish. Thank you for coming out. So glad I could have you on.